right, dear friends, here is my advice. When you open your math binder, you probably, hopefully, have your math 1 or your chapter 1 math notes. If I was you, I would just flip to the back of those where you had that final page about like probability. And after that is where I would put your new chapter 2 math notes. So take a moment, make sure you put these in sleeves. Now we might pull them out of sleeves to like highlight as we talk about them, but we want them in sleeves to keep them safe. So I'm going to do the same thing because I like to have my math binder reflect what yours probably looks like. And then if you're ahead of me, you could be looking through the math notes to see what sort of information is there. So when you see a question on your homework that maybe talks about, I don't know, an additive inverse or additive identity, you're like, oh, I saw those words in my math notes. Or like last night's homework, multiplication using the generic rectangles. Or on a problem, talks about what's an integer. That's not how you say it. It's an integer. Tigger is T-I-double-gut-er. But integers are integers. Integers are entire numbers. No partials, no decimals, no fractions. Integers are entire numbers. So what we were doing yesterday with floats and anchors, that was addition of integers. Hey guys, I'm like going through the notes, right? Like a lot of you have already caught on. Like I'm kind of going section by section as you're putting these in. Then eventually we're going to multiply mixed numbers. We're going to use generic rectangle to do that also because without a calculator, and especially if we're doing fractions, the generic rectangle really helps us. I think this is kind of another reminder. I think this was in chapter 1 as well. But just in case, fraction, decimal, and percent conversions. And then multiplying fractions using like shaded or double shaded rectangles. And again, this was in chapter 1, but it's important and some of us are still struggling with it. How do we scale axes? Any questions about what's in your math notes now? I try to keep it concise so we're not wasting paper printing. I have some cheese sticks that I would like to share.
Yeah.
However, okay, sorry. I've also got like beef jerky, like beef sticks, or I've got like granola bars, like protein bars. We can. I got snacks that can make you happy, right? Don't worry. But I need some help trying to figure out how to share them. So that's what we're eventually going to get to today. Hopefully we like have time to get to it. So again, no, not for real. You got to win the homework contest to do that. We're out of order. Yesterday was 2-2-1 because we did it for the Desmos, right? It's okay that we went out of order. Don't worry, I'm driving this bus or whatever that we're all on. We took a different turn. It wasn't a wrong turn. It was a different turn. So today is 2-1-1. 2-1-1. Now you'll notice it's all pretty much practice work. Like it's a bigger paper. This very well might turn into 2 days worth of homework because there's a lot of questions. But guys, do not put off starting it. And back here on 16, this is an example. This whole top part is an example. Then, and by the way, where it says copy, you don't need to copy because I already did it for you. This is when like I'm trying to be nice. So if you want to go ahead and on 16 cross out copy so you're not confused. CPM, if you did it like out of the book or off the online book, you'd have to copy it onto your paper. I am trying to make your life easier. Who what? How what? Read this. Investigate the pattern. Here, I mean, since you asked the question, now it's going to drive me crazy if we don't answer it. Everyone take a moment and look at this pattern. Raise your hand if you think you have figured out how the left and right numbers are related to the top and bottom numbers. Sophia? So if you want to make a little key for yourself, I should see pencils moving, because otherwise your homework's going to be more difficult than it should be. If we call the numbers on the left and right A and B, the top is A times B. The bottom is A plus B. Yeah. So Lane, it scares me that you're not writing that down since you were the one that asked that question. That's a choice that you're making and you will live with.
So wait, is that the answer? How do we do that?
So I don't think any of you have actually had enough time to read this whole thing. Then we're going to fill in. All right, let's do one together. If we look at A, what we're going to do with that 3 and that 4 to figure out the top is do what with the numbers? Multiply them. So what would go on top here? 12. And what would go on bottom? 7. Now hold on a minute. D is really tough. We'll talk about that when we check answers, but I want you to have time. What you're looking for is an A and a B that when you multiply them, you get 28, but when you add them, you get 11. So you need to find an A and a B, like two numbers, that works for. But at this point, put this away, and let me check. Are the cheese sticks the first thing we're going to do?
You have to get Slim Jims.
No, I mean, no, because also Slim Jims are bad. One of the ingredients in Slim Jims is mechanically separated chicken parts, and if that's what you want to eat, you go ahead and eat that, but I'm not going to eat that. It sounds gross.
I like Slim Jims. They're yummy.
They're really high in sodium, too, so they're not very good for you.
I like Slim Jims. I like spicy stuff.
I have like a heart thing, so I got to watch the amount of sodium that I eat. All right, so this is one of those days, and actually, I want to start a new habit. Everyone's going to need a piece of graph paper, and we're actually going to start this for the chapter and just keep it going. So a lot of you have graph paper in your binder because we're safe. But if you don't have graph paper in your binder, go grab a piece of graph paper. Always worth celebrating the small things, right? So let's, at the top of this graph paper, by the way, if we have time at the end, someone remind me to show you my drawings, my math, math in the real world, but then I'll have to admit to you why my dog's an idiot. Yeah, Khan Academy, you can totally do that. It's okay, but we're gonna talk about cheese sticks. So I want us to start to use graph paper in a way that makes good sense. And by the way, 5 Star did some funky stuff. I don't know what these little symbols are, or why there's these arrows, but there's lots of different graph paper based off what you guys bought. I want all of us to put a header on this paper, and if somebody from your group would like to come grab a bin, I was trying to make sure that they all have the same stuff in them, but I kind of ran out of time. So there's at least highlighters in there. There's also Sharpies at the back. If you ever want to borrow a Sharpie, you are welcome to borrow my Sharpies. Please put them back, though. So let's head this with, chapter 2. Chapter 2 math notes, from class, is then what I put on top, just because, I give you other math notes. And if it's a header, we might as well probably, underline it or make it look pretty somehow. I know Sophia's probably like, that is not. You're just, all right, so you probably do things like this. Or, whatever, fancier. I don't know. I'm trying to. All right, so I want us to get better at using our graph paper. So if we were going to try to draw this, how many squares wide could we make it on our graph paper? Well, we could just make it 3 squares wide, but that's really small. So instead of going 3 squares wide, how wide could we go? Ooh, but so you're right. Like we could, but there are 3 distinct sections that we want to draw. So instead, we could go up to 6. So let's all draw a rectangle that is 6 squares wide. 1, 2. And then let's just go like, I don't know, 3 squares tall. Sure, I mean, it's got a straight edge on the side, right? If you just need a straight edge. Guys, there's rulers in the back if you want a ruler to make this look real nice. And then, guys, I want you to shade in. Like, I want you to split this into thirds. Shade it in. And we're going to start a nice little reference page that you might, cough, cough, nudge, nudge, you might get a chance to use on like a mini mastery at some point. I don't understand what those noises were supposed to be or why they were necessary, but let's maybe just keep it to like regular human noises. At least while we're in class. I want to start to get you guys comfortable using graph paper. Which is also why I decided we might just make this lesson take a couple days instead of just one. So guys, again, my homework will only ever shift to the right. So if 212 does not end up being tomorrow's homework, it's just going to shift into next week, right? My homework will only ever slow down. So we're going to go ahead and label 2 out of 3 because like if this is your pizza that you're getting for dinner, and you want your slice to not have mushrooms on it, but like my brother and my sister want theirs to have mushrooms, then like 2 out of 3 for my brother and my sister, but I'm 1 out of 3. By the way, if we haven't covered this, I have 1 brother and 1 sister. They're both older than me, making me the baby of the family. I'm the baby. All right, so then if we're going to try to draw 3/4, what would be a good width for this rectangle? On 8 would be good, right? Count out 8 squares because that'll work better with 4. So let's count out. Now, I would shift down because, guys, I have so much graph paper, it's not funny. Do not try to squeeze stuff on your graph paper. Give yourself plenty of space. So I'm going to skip a few squares. I skipped 3 just to make it the same size of a skip as what I just drew. I'm going to still go 3 tall, but I'm going to go 8 wide now to make it look a little nicer with my 4ths. I should not have to walk around for you to be doing this, but if you haven't done any of this yet, know that I'm going to walk around in just a moment. And if you've done none of this, you're going to need to. Now, I could have made it like 4 tall. Maybe that would have looked a little nicer, but up to you. So each of these sections will be 2 wide. Wait! Crap! Oh, I messed up. This is why you don't do math in a pen.
Yeah, I messed up too.
Hey, here's a great example.
Is this supposed to be 8 long?
How do you spell oops? O-O-P? O-P.
O-O-P-S.
All right, I'm starting over. I'm going to go 4 tall. Yeah, you guys should not blindly count. Hey, here's a way to make sure you don't mess up. Count by 2s.
That's what I do.
That's because you're smarter than me.
Yeah!
I am now. It's up to you. Like, this is for you.
How much do we have?
This is your drawing. Did you say do-gooder?
Do-gooder.
Yeah, do-gooder. Well, I was going to say I agree. And then shade 3 of those 4. Hey guys, I'm going to encourage you as you write fractions, that bar between the numerator and denominator, it's better if it's horizontal. Like, it's better if it's flat. I know, like, a lot of elementary school teachers have probably let us do the angled bar. And as you're shading, try to make sure that, like, you can still see the splits in your pizza, or whatever you want to think this is. What? I don't know. What would make more sense to be rectangle? I know
Candy
Jets. Like a candy bar. So let's say we're splitting this candy bar. It's always food. Look, I'm sorry. It's always going to be food because that really helps. Okay, so my neighbor Patty, shout out Patty. You'll never see this because I doubt you watch YouTube. Probably in her 70s, maybe in her 80s. She got in a car wreck, right? So she, I've been helping her out a little bit, and actually this drawing right here that my dog tried to eat last night, this was from building her new steps for her garage. So I was over last night talking with her about like what I teach, and I was trying to explain what I teach, and really what I came down to was like, well, a lot of proportions, a lot of like fractions and reasoning with portions of things, and what our conversation circled back to was like, oh, like grocery store math is kind of what she said. Like, this is the type of math you're gonna use when you are like deciding dinner with friends or going to the grocery store. Like, what I'm teaching you is actually important to your life, I promise you. If it wasn't important, I wouldn't teach it. All right, so if I shade like this, the fraction to represent this is
3/4.
3/4. So if I want to turn this into a decimal, 3/4 into a decimal, I want you to turn to your neighbor and talk about what fraction could we go to first that would then let us take it to a decimal. Hint, we did this last chapter. Don't make your life harder than it needs to be. Using halves. Just go bigger.
This 12 work? Wait, it needs to be under 100.
I feel like you guys said that at the same time, like it was practiced or something. Eli! First off, welcome back. Glad to have you back. What did you and Devin decide? Hi, hello. Oh, very top left shelf back there of the Math 7 stuff. Very top left shelf, under that pink post-it. So, Eli. Hey, first things first, because this is a paper that you're going to keep in your binder and might decide like you use over and over again. When we are changing a fraction to another fraction, what are the only things we're allowed to do? We're only allowed to what? Because we're going to make a little note over, like, we're only allowed to multiply, or technically, you could also do what? Yeah, you can only multiply or divide, because technically division is multiplication. So if you want to make a note to remind yourself when we're working with fractions, we're only allowed to multiply or divide. So if you can take the one that has highlighter on it, or if you don't want, you can take a fresh one too. What? That's the multiplication table. We did it in class and I highlighted it, but like you can take whichever one you want. Yeah. No, we worked on it in class. So, Eli, you said you guys didn't totally agree. What were the two things you were thinking about here then? Now, why did you go directly into 100? Why? What are we trying to convert into? Fraction into... So guys, decimals, you could also write this down, maybe if you want to. Anyone ever thought about the root of the word decimal? Because I sure didn't until I started teaching math. Deci, or just dec, if you just want to stop there. But really, deci is what we're looking at. What's a decade? 10 years. What's a decagon? So deca is tens. Deci? Deci means divide by tens. So guys, decimal, when we start, this would be really good to put in your math notes. The first place is our what place? Tenths. Right? It's the whatever's over 10. The next place is if something is over 100, we can put, like if it was 1/100th, the 1 would go there, right? 1/100th, the 1 would go there. What about the third place? And I just kind of don't have more colors. Do I? Thousandths. And we can keep going. It keeps getting 10 times bigger on the denominator. So Eli said he went straight to 100 because he said, well, that's going to help us get into a decimal. So Eli, how'd you turn 4 into 100? Yeah, we multiply by 25. Yeah, absolutely. Guys, you can always shut the door. Like, this is my blanket permission. Anyone that is like, oh, there's noise coming from out there. So if we do times 25 on bottom, we do times 25 on top, and we get what fraction? 75 hundredths. Which is, if we stop at percent to take a little picture there, right? Scenic way to get to decimal. I didn't need to stop at percent, but it was on the way to decimal. What is the decimal that represents this fraction, and that percent, since they're all equal? 75 hundredths, meaning we will stop our fraction in the hundredths place, or the second place, right? So 75 stopping in the hundredths place because it's 75 hundredths. Try to turn 2/3 into a decimal. Actually, you know what? With the time we have left, I want you to... So, oh crap, there is a 6th person. I'm trying to figure out groups of 5, but it is harder than it should be. You guys good because you're distracted. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, I am being distracted. It's not really your fault. Kind of, it's sort of my fault.
It'd be 3.
Yeah, this is the weird thing. So, I bet you guys can make groups of 5, and it doesn't really matter if you have all your stuff with you or not. I want you to try to get into groups of 5, and when you have a group of 5, raise your hands, and I will bring you some cheese sticks. Now, I do have, like, better than Slim Jims, but if we're being honest, I'm not giving you any actual food because food allergies and everything else. Get in groups of 5. Get in groups of 5. This is your challenge.
We need 2 more people.
Can we have groups of 4? Because there's like not enough.
If you act like you have a 5th person.
Alright.
Sure, your imaginary friend is your 5th person. Here's 13 cheese sticks. Divide them evenly. Divide them evenly among all 5 of you. Yeah, you need to. Do you actually have 5 people? Sweet. Here are 13 cheese sticks. Divide them evenly among everyone. Yeah, I got a good one. So you guys are gonna have 2 imaginary people? Which is totally fine. Here's 13 cheese sticks. Divide them evenly among you guys. You can rip them if you need. Here, just start acting like you have 5 people. Here's 13 cheese sticks. Divide them evenly.
Are we allowed to cut them?
Yep. Well, rip is probably easier than cut, but I wouldn't cut them until you have to.
Can we cut them?
Yeah, once, like, if you have to, sure.
Each person needs 3. We cut the cheese.
Ha! Somebody said they cut the cheese. It's a fart joke. Oh, you can, like, cut your things up. Yeah, if you need to rip those, you can rip those. You can rip those. It's fine.
Then do 13. I'll work on it. You should use it to get cut in the
So how much do you think you get? I don't think. Six. Okay. Well, I was gonna bother you to like be in fraction form. Can you say in fraction form differently? 2 and. So a fraction is a numerator and a denominator. 2 and what? Is that when you split a G6 into 13? What fractions do we need? Okay.
I see how it is, right? See how it is.
Hey, that's not false. What do you guys think?
Try again.
So your fifths are the same. Oh my God, fraction takes 13. Okay. We got a group that is done in fraction form. 2 and 3. So the denominator, the bottom of the fraction, is how many pieces you need to cheese. Right, so like when you guys start, so what did you do first? Everyone got 2, then how many were left? 3. So what did you do with the 3 cheese sticks that were left? What do you mean? How do you
cut them.
Cut them in half and make it.
You cut them in half and you don't want to half. So there are 3, right?
Then you'd still have half.
Half. Then you have a half left over.
Then you cut that into 5.
Put that in the 5. What is, if you took this half and you did it into fifths, what is each of these pieces now? It's a fifth of a half. What's a fifth of a half? It's a 10. So our denominator has never been 6 or 13, so be careful. 13 has not been our denominator, even though we started with 13 is actually our numerator.
We're done.
Alright, everyone grab a seat because I'm running out of time. Like, go back to where your normal seat is. Well, not like where you were today. Or if you guys are fine, we need to write some things down. If you can, if you want. I would not eat these though. Then you'll have to like Nico because Nico eats paper. Like my dog, who I said is an idiot, he eats paper. I can't eat anything. Guys, I'm not like. I promise you, I don't make stuff up. This book is like for school. He ate the cover off of it. My dog is a dummy. I'm gonna complain about him all year, probably every time he eats something, which was last night. He ate something. My plans that for the steps I was making. Where's my cards? Emery,
Yep.
what did your group do first with your 13 cheese sticks?
So, me, Jane, and Donna, we got 13, and we gave 2 out to everyone, and then we had 3 extras.
So I'm gonna label our people A, B, C, D, E because that's easier than like numbers, right? Because then we're gonna use numbers for other stuff. All right. So A, B, C, D, E. So you said everyone got 2. So 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So how many cheese sticks were used?
10.
10, right? Sorry, my 2 kind of looks like a Z.
Yeah, I did.
Then, how many cheese sticks do you have left?
3.
3. Sophie, everyone moved. What did your group then do with those 3 cheese sticks? So guys, one of the things we do when we like let you choose where you sit is observe who should or should not sit next to each other. So just to put it out there, like when you're talking, when other like teammates are talking, or other like when we're doing class conversation, or you're like not able to control your behaviors just sitting there, we're observing who you act better or worse around. So just be aware of that. Sorry, what did you say, Sophie? I got distracted by behaviors. Why fifths? So you had 3 cheese sticks left. Why fifths? Oh, well, that makes sense. Give A a piece, give B a piece, give C a piece, give D a piece, and E. And so you just did that for all 3 of them? So if each of these was a fifth, after all those three, what'd you end up with? 2 and 3/5. 3/5. 3/5. Now, who got something different, but you think you still did it right? Like, who got something different than 2 and 3/5? Because that wasn't the only way to split up the cheese sticks. My group, no, you guys are fine. My group up here first said split them into halves. So my group up here said, all right, give everyone 2, then give everyone a half. Now, is 3/5 more or less than a half? Think about a pizza cut into fifths. 3/5 is more, right? So say for Lane, after we did the half, we still ended up with half a cheese stick left. What'd you guys do then? This is something worth writing down, dealing with fractions. They then did 1/5 of the half. And how do we multiply fractions? Straight across the top, straight across the bottom. So guys, in your math notes that we're taking so we can refer back to them, and if you're like me, I'm going to need a new paper, right? But maybe you wrote a couple things down about cheese sticks. I'm going to make a note that when we multiply fractions, since we just did it together, we said 1/5 of a half. So in that second round of splitting things up, how much did each of them get? Well, 1 times 1. 1 over 10. Okay, so that's now 1/10. I switched my view to try to get you to write on your graph paper. But okay, so that's 1/10. But we need to add that 1/10 with the 1/2. Ghost. I think then we ran out of cheese stick. How can we add a half with a 10th? Take a moment to do this with your team. Let's see if this team did it right. Also, if we actually got to the same thing. A half plus a 10. Half plus a 10. Whoa! Potty mouth.
He said figure.
Sure he did. All right. Explain it for the whole class then, Lane.
Oh, so basic.
You have to teach it. You got to like write on the board and everything. All right. I would suggest changing color for the first thing you're gonna do because I think you're gonna like.
So 1/2, right? What is half of a half? No, wait, sorry. I said that one. What is half of 10?
What? So hey, make sure we say the vocab. What are you trying to get to before we add?
We're trying to get to like common denominator. You know what I'm saying?
Common denominator.
Like if you look at your multiplication chart, it's like wait, no,
So guys, my smart board's not set like the other. Here, you narrate, I'll write, because we're running out of time. You narrate, I'll write.
Alright, so
Okay?
basically, right? A half, right? A half of 10 is 5.
Or if we show multiplication on top and
Yeah.
bottom.
It's a
I
big
guess
one.
over here too to write. So
So
a half. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, like a half of 10 is 5, right? So then we end up with 1/5. But you have to multiply that by 5 to divide it, right? So then you have 5 tenths. And what's 5 tenths plus 1? 6 tenths.
Is 6/10 the same as 3/5?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is easier.
Easier, I will accept. So hold up. 211. This homework is gonna count for 2 days. It's today and tomorrow. That doesn't mean don't work on it. Means do some of it tonight, do some of it another night, or do all of it tonight and then you're done. I'm about to change that after I do all the other stuff I need to do. Hey, your cheese stick pieces, if they're not whole cheese sticks, put them in the recycling bin. Your cheese stick pieces, put them in the recycling bin, please and thank you.
So we're not sharing.
If you want one of these pieces, you can have it. Sure. Nope, I'm sorry. That's my last one back there. No joke. That is not a lie. That's my final cheese stick back there.
Cut it into 2, 3
Into 20ths, because there's like 19 of you and 1 of me.
Yeah.
Actually, I think there's 18 of you.
Wait, if we put it in 8.
What, you're gonna not give me a piece?
I think I get all the pieces.
Well, that's rude.